this video of an argument that is going on. And you know, thank God all young people, they have cell phones, and anytime you hear people raising their voice, they start the video. And so you hear on the video Nolan saying, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?" And that becomes even more relevant when you think about the story that they are presenting, that Nolan chose to stay behind. That's what they're saying.
On 4 July 2026.
From claims of Nolan Wells attending a pool party to reports of a fight, there is a lot of back and forth about the final moments of this teen football player who died over the July 4th weekend. We are sorting through the latest.
18-year-old Nolan Wells, a Southwest Mississippi Community College football player and recent Ocean Springs High graduate, vanished during a boating trip to Horn Island.
Okay, so we have these new details about the tragic death of 18-year-old Southwest Mississippi Community College football player Nolan Wells, a graduate of Ocean Springs High, disappeared while boating with friends on Horn Island. It's right off the coast of Mississippi. This was during the July 4th weekend. And by the way, this is an island where there's limited access. You got to have a boat. It's a wilderness area. There's no commercial development.
A secluded wilderness area off the Mississippi coast, accessible only by boat with no commercial development. His body washed ashore on the island
no commercial
that Monday.
Development. And that says something. That says something about the investigation and what might have happened here. But we know the tragedy of this case. We know that Nolan's body was found that Monday on the island, washed ashore. His family is demanding transparency. They are demanding.
The Jackson County Coroner announced an autopsy by the state medical examiner's office.
An autopsy. And by the way, this follows Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lynn Jr.'s announcement that an autopsy is being conducted by the state ME office, but the results are pending because of toxicology test findings that could take several weeks. But authorities reportedly believe that this was an accident.
But the results are pending toxicology findings that could take weeks. Authorities initially suggested this was likely an accident, a case of drowning with no obvious signs of foul play, even as they continued to investigate. But that narrative began to fracture almost immediately. Nolan's family, demanding transparency and a full investigation, retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump.
They're demanding a full investigation into what happened. They have retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump. They have ordered an independent investigation and an independent autopsy. In fact, Ben Crump told ABC News Live last week that Nolan's body would be flown to Washington, D.C. for an independent autopsy.
They ordered an independent investigation and autopsy, with Nolan's body flown to Washington, D.C. for a second examination. The family's questions were relentless. Why did Nolan separate from his friends when he was supposed to take a different boat back?
But there are questions. For instance, according to CNN, Nolan didn't return to the dock with his friends that day, and his family didn't understand why he would separate from them, that he was supposed to take a different boat back but didn't. Nolan apparently didn't have a cell phone with him. There were reports of an alleged altercation that day. According to the sheriff, one of Nolan's friends contacted the Coast Guard on the night of July 4th at around 11 p.m. Nolan's mom called the sheriff's office.
According to CNN, Nolan apparently didn't have a cell phone with him. Reports of an alleged altercation that day began to surface. Nolan's mother told GMA that they tracked his phone using the Life 360 app and found it was with his friends.
GMA that they tracked Nolan's phone using the Life 360 app, and they found out that his phone was with his friends, and she claims that it's possible some of the texts and
claiming it was possible that some texts and messages were deleted. Nolan's father echoed the family's bewilderment.
His mother saying to GMA, that we cannot answer. I can't fathom why he would. His father saying, we always told him if you go with a group, you
always told him if you go with a group, you stay with a group. Even Nolan's friend, Javon Williams, told
heading
CNN
back to the mainland. But even Nolan's friend, Javon Williams, told CNN, quote, I've never known Nolan to stay back while his friends leave. He's always been a guy where if he rode with you, he's going to come back with you. That's always how he's been every single time. There's also this. Nolan's mother told,
I've never known Nolan to stay back while his friends leave. He's always been a guy where if he rode with you, he's going to come back with you. That's always how he's been every single time. The contradictions were piling up, and the story the friends were telling about Nolan willingly staying behind was starting to look more like a convenient alibi than the truth. Then came the video. A video circulated online showing what appeared to be an argument on the island that day, and many believed it involved Nolan.
His father saying, we always told him if you go with a group, you stay with a group. In fact, Sheriff John Ledbetter previously indicated that Nolan may have stayed on the island rather than heading back to the mainland. But even Nolan's friend, Javon Williams, told CNN, quote, I've never known Nolan to stay back.
Ben Crump discussed it in a press conference, pointing to it as one of the glaring contradictions in the case. Crump highlighted that in the video, you can hear someone shouting, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?" He argued this becomes even more relevant when you consider the narrative that Nolan chose to stay behind. The image of Nolan, a young black man,
He is there with his friends, and you look at all the videos, it seems to be he's
seemingly
the
isolated and demanding his phone back from his friends, painted a disturbing picture that the official story was attempting to paper over. But then came the counter-narrative, delivered with a desperate urgency that only made the situation murkier. Nolan's reported good friend, Tracen Shepard, stepped forward to push back against Ben Crump's claims. He insisted that the argument in the video had nothing to do with Nolan. Shepard claimed, "That's me
Sidebar.
yelling."
Well, here's the thing. According to ABC News, despite Ben Crump claiming last week that Wells was asking for his phone back and that he was part of this argument, Nolan's reported good friend, Tracen Shepard, claims that's not the case, that there was no altercation that involved Nolan. He even claimed that Nolan isn't even in the video. Quote, "That's me yelling. There was no talk about a phone in that video. Nolan
There was no
wasn't
talk about a phone in that video. Nolan wasn't on the island, and Shepard said it was a fight with a stranger. He explained that Nolan stayed behind after the boat had to return to shore because of an electrical issue, and that Nolan had met a girl and would come back on a different friend's boat. Shepard also attempted to debunk the narrative of a pool party early on July 5th, saying a photo that had been circulating, which Crump had shared, was actually from a party on June 27th in Pass Christian, Mississippi. On the matter of Nolan's phone,
what about Nolan's phone, right? A lot of questions about Nolan's phone. So while attorney Ben Crump told GMA that it was suspicious that Nolan didn't have his phone with him and that his friends had it or his friend had it, Shepard says, look, it's not unusual for people to leave their phones in boats. Shepard's uncle, who was apparently driving one of the boats that day, confirmed that too.
Shepard was dismissive, saying, "All our friends are out there. Who are we communicating with? And we're in salt water. We're not in fresh water." When Nolan got in the water, he put his phone on the boat dash along with probably 15 other phones. Shepard's interview with Rolling Stone revealed a young man terrified and defensive, trying to control a narrative that was spinning out of control.
Nolan brought us all together. And Shepard separately told Rolling Stone in an interview that was published on Sunday, quote, "I'm tired of speculation, of not being able to talk. It's time for somebody to start speaking up. I'm not just hurting because of Nolan. I'm also hurting because I call my friends and you can hear it in their voice that they're terrified of what these people
I'm tired of
will do."
speculation of not being able to talk. He said, "It's time for somebody to start speaking up. I'm not just hurting because of Nolan. I'm also hurting because I call my friends and you can hear it in their voice that they're terrified of what these people will do to them. It's gone completely way too far." He emphasized his friend group's diversity.
And his friends. He emphasized that they have a diverse friend group. He's pushing back on the narrative that race has something to do with what happened to Nolan Wells. He indicated that he and his friend group, they have been receiving death threats since Nolan was found, that he wanted to speak out to clear up any misinformation.
Rejecting any suggestion that race played a role in what happened to Nolan. They're trying to spin a narrative that's not there, Shepard declared.
Again, that he rejects the idea of race being a part of this, saying, quote, "They're trying to spin a narrative that's not there. He's wrong. I understand Nolan's parents are grieving, and I really think he's taken a little bit of advantage of that, and I don't like that. I really don't, because they're vulnerable." And Shepard asked for everybody just to relax and let everybody mourn the loss of Nolan and let us remember him as the sweet guy he was and not something we're scared of because of the trauma.
I understand Nolan's parents are grieving, and I really think he's taken a little bit of advantage of that, and I don't like that. He framed the scrutiny as an attack on his character, a form of slander from a grieving family being manipulated by a high-profile attorney. But here's where the script flips and the contradictions become impossible to ignore. Shepard's attempt to distance himself and his friends from the incident is, in itself, a damning piece of evidence. He claims the argument on the video is him yelling, but this admission does nothing to clear his name. It implicates him directly. He is openly admitting to being part of a violent or hostile confrontation on the very day Nolan died. If it was him yelling, why the secrecy? Why the initial attempt to suggest it was Nolan? His claim that the fight was with a stranger is a convenient deflection that raises more questions than it answers. Who was this stranger? Why were they fighting? And why is the friend of the deceased young man publicly inserting himself as a central, aggressive figure in a video related to the day of the death? Furthermore, Shepard's explanation of why Nolan stayed behind, that he wanted to talk to a girl, directly contradicts the young woman's account.
Jared, you have where a young woman he was talking to says that, well, Nolan said he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys say that Nolan told them he was going to stay and talk to the young woman. It's a contradiction. They're not saying the same thing.
As Crump noted, the young woman stated that Nolan said he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. This is a classic, he said. She said, but in this context, it's a critical point of contention. One of them is lying. The facts point toward the friend's account being the fabrication, a desperate attempt to justify why they left a member of their group alone on a remote island without his phone. The story about a dead cell phone battery and leaving it on the boat also crumbles under scrutiny. Nolan had a working phone earlier that day. It wasn't dead, he just didn't have it when he needed it most. And the claim that no one communicated with him after he separated is not just suspicious, it's a violation of the social contract of friendship. You don't leave a friend behind on a wilderness island without a phone and simply accept that he's staying back. The fundamental problem with Shepard's defense is that it is all about what he needs us to believe, not what the evidence suggests. He tells us his friend group is diverse, as if to preempt a conversation about racial dynamics that is already unavoidable. He tells us he and his friends are receiving death threats, a claim designed to elicit sympathy and distract from the actual allegations. He tells us to just relax and let the investigation happen, while simultaneously giving media interviews to control the narrative. But the reality is, the family's distrust is not a manipulation by a slick lawyer, it's a rational response to a pattern of obfuscation. They see a video of their son arguing with friends. Those friends' accounts shift and contradict each other, and their son ends up dead. The idea that race is irrelevant is a willful blindness. The historical context of the South, combined with the image of a young black man alone on an island with a group of friends whose stories don't add up, is a stark reality that cannot be ignored. As one observer noted, you look at all the videos, it seems to be he's the only black on the island. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter has called for patience.
John Ledbetter, he said this week, quote, Nolan Wells' family deserves a thorough and factual investigation, and that's exactly what they're going to get. I think it is important that we do not put ourselves on a timetable and we do not rush ourselves, but I also think it is important to be diligent in gathering all of the facts. And he has been encouraging the public's help for any information, unedited photos, videos from
stating,
that weekend.
Nolan Wells' family deserves a thorough and factual investigation, and that's exactly what they're going to get. I think it is important that we do not put ourselves on a timetable and we do not rush ourselves. While this is standard procedure, it feels hollow when juxtaposed against the family's urgency. The sheriff is asking for the public's help, urging anyone with unedited photos or videos from that weekend to come forward. But the question that haunts this entire tragedy is one he seems unwilling to address directly. Why is the family being forced to conduct their own investigation and secure an independent autopsy if they have any faith in the official one? The contradictions are not just minor discrepancies. They are the building blocks of a case that stinks of either gross negligence or deliberate concealment. If it was an accident, why are the stories from the friends changing and being actively publicly defended? If it was a drowning, why is there a fight caught on video where someone is demanding a phone? The facts as they stand are damning. Nolan Wells was left on an island without his phone by the people who were supposed to be his friends. A video shows an argument involving at least one of those friends. The friends' accounts are inconsistent, and the family's distrust of the official investigation is not just justified, it is a moral imperative.
And I think for a lot of people of color, and particularly people in the South, that's not an unreasonable concern. Historically, my profession, my former profession, has not always behaved in a way that's worthy of the trust of everybody in the communities that we're supposed to serve and protect. So the idea that the parents would be suspicious, would be concerned that the local authorities might not do a great job, I think that's fair. And again, I'm not casting any aspersions on the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. I'm just saying that's a legitimate human impulse. And again,
this brings us to the larger, more uncomfortable truth about this case. The system designed to investigate and bring justice to families like Nolan's is often the very system they cannot trust. When a family of color is told to wait, to be patient, to trust the process, what they are often being told to do is to accept a reality that the system is not built to reveal to them. The system is slow, the system protects itself. It prioritizes the story that is easiest to tell, the one that closes the file fastest. The family's decision to hire Ben Crump and secure an independent autopsy is not an act of aggression, it is an act of survival. It is the only tool they have to ensure that the truth is not quietly buried in a coroner's report that the public never sees. The investigation must be thorough, but it also must be transparent. The independent autopsy is not a challenge to law enforcement, it is a failsafe. It is the recognition that the official investigation, whether through incompetence or prejudice, might fail to deliver justice. The family is not asking for a rush to judgment. They are asking for a commitment to the truth, no matter where that truth leads. They are asking for the same thing every parent would want, to know what happened to their child. And they are demanding it because, in their hearts, they know that waiting on the system is what gets a case like this swept under the rug. The fact that Tracen Shepard feels the need to speak out publicly, to claim the video isn't Nolan, to defend his friend group, is itself an admission that something is wrong. His words are not a defense of Nolan's memory, they are a defense of himself. When he says, "We would die for him," the action he is asking us to believe is the opposite of that claim. He left him there. He is arguing not about what happened, but about what he wants us to think happened. And that is the most telling detail of all. One of the most chilling aspects of this case is the friends' reaction to their loss. They have been the subject of intense scrutiny, and their response has not been one of collective grief and cooperation with the investigation. Instead, it has been one of defensive, self-interested damage control. Shepard's interviews and public statements are a stark departure from the typical behavior of people who have truly lost a loved one tragically. Usually, the friends of a deceased person are broken, confused, and desperate for answers. They wait on the authorities. They hope for closure. They do not hold press conferences and media tours to dispute the grieving family's account of their own son's final moments. This behavior is inconsistent with innocence. It is consistent with a group that is trying to get its story straight before the evidence catches up with them. When the narrative becomes more important than the truth, it is usually because the truth is damning. The core conflict of the Nolan Wells case is not just about whether he drowned or was murdered. It is a referendum on the very concept of justice. For the family, justice is about accountability. It is about ensuring that the people responsible for his death, whether through action or inaction, are held to account. For those who would prefer the story to end with an accidental drowning, justice is about closure, even if it is false. The family is right to reject that false closure. They are not just grieving a son, they are fighting a system that would rather label him a statistic than investigate the fact that he was abandoned by everyone who should have protected him. The case of Nolan Wells is a tragedy on multiple levels. It is a tragedy of a young life cut short. It is a tragedy of a family's shattered trust in the institutions that are supposed to help them. But it is also a tragedy of an all too familiar pattern where the stories of young black men are dismissed, their deaths ruled accidents without thorough investigation, and their families are left to fight alone for a truth that the system would rather ignore. The friends' insistence on their own innocence, their attempts to control the narrative, only serve to underscore the fact that there is a narrative they are desperate to control. Ben Crump's independent investigation is not a disruption of the process, it is the process. It is the only process that might actually deliver justice for Nolan Wells. The system works for those with resources, those with power, those with an attorney like Ben Crump. But the fact that a family needs a Ben Crump to be heard is itself an indictment. It is a confession that the system fails the poor, the powerless, and the black. The family's battle is not just for Nolan's truth, it is for a change in the way the system operates. It is for the next family that might not have a Ben Crump. It is for the belief that a young man's life, especially a young black man's life, is worth more than a single line in a coroner's report that says drowning. Nolan Wells was a son, a teammate, a friend. He was a promising young man with a future. He was also abandoned. The people who were supposed to have his back, his friends, left him alone on an island with no phone. They let him disappear, and when his body was found, they began a campaign to control the narrative. They are telling you it was an accident. They are telling you it was a girl. They are telling you the fight was with a stranger. But they are not telling you the truth. The truth is, they left him. They lied. And now, they are trying to bury the story under a mountain of self-serving interviews and carefully worded statements. But the truth has a way of surfacing. The independent autopsy will provide answers. The FBI's involvement in the Civil Rights Division will be crucial. The public pressure will ensure that this case is not forgotten. The system is broken, but it can be fixed. The first step is to acknowledge that it is broken. The second step is to demand that it be fixed. The third step is to hold the system accountable for its failures. The Nolan Wells case is a window into that broken system. It is a reminder that justice is not automatic. It is a fight. And it is a fight that his family, with the support of a public that refuses to look away, is determined to win. This is not just about Nolan Wells. This is about every family that has ever been told to wait, to trust, to be patient, while the people responsible for their child's death walk free. It is about every family that has ever felt the cold indifference of a system that is not designed for them.